Sometimes a world reveals itself, not with a roar, but with a quiet breath across a broken horizon. Tonight, let me take you to a post-apocalyptic America, its cracked highways stretching like abandoned veins, its monuments softened by radioactive wind, its empty bullet casings glittering like the ashes of a forgotten dream. This is a place that once believed in limitless progress, only to be burned by its own devotion. So settle in, take a slow, steady breath. The story I'm opening for you is not our future, but a future humanity missed, one step sideways from history. If you enjoy these journeys, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell me where you're listening from, what time it is, and the topics you'd love to explore. Your thoughts may guide our next adventure. To understand the world of Fallout, you must picture a timeline that did not follow ours, a quiet fracture in history, a divergence that began after the Second World War. In this alternate path, humanity never discovered the transistor. Without that tiny spark of invention, the digital revolution never arrived. Instead, technology grew larger, heavier, more mechanical. Robots hummed with vacuum tubes. Computers filled entire rooms, glowing softly with the warm pulse of analog circuitry. Yet, despite this technological detour, one thing did not change: the American imagination. Society remained frozen in the hopeful gleam of the 1950s. Cheerful jingles, polished chrome, promises of a radiant tomorrow. But beneath that polished optimism lived something darker, a deep, unshakable fear of annihilation. Nuclear dread seeped into every advertisement, every school drill, every whispered anxiety. It was a world suspended between utopia and catastrophe, as if the future itself were holding its breath. At the philosophical center of this universe lies a single echoing truth: war. War never changes, not because conflict is inevitable, but because human nature rarely escapes its own patterns. In Fallout's world, power rises, falters, and resurrects itself in new forms, each cycle echoing the one before, no matter how advanced the machines or how radiant the promises. Now, imagine the Wasteland not as a location, but as a presence, a silent witness, a patient judge. The Wasteland swallows the old world whole, its cities, its monuments, its certainties, and in their place, it offers a harsh but honest challenge. Can humanity rebuild itself without repeating its mistakes? Every faction believes it can. Every ideology insists it holds the answer. And yet, each one mirrors the world that came before. The New California Republic clings to democracy, but suffers the same bureaucracy and expansionism that once plagued the old United States. The Brotherhood of Steel hoards technology like sacred scripture, repeating the fear-driven isolationism that doomed their predecessors. Caesar's legion resurrects empire through brutality, convinced that order must be forged in blood. And deep beneath the earth, the Institute hides, convinced that the future should be engineered, not lived. But the heart of the world, the dark, humming core, belongs to Vault-Tec, a vast system of underground shelters advertised as salvation, yet secretly built as laboratories. While the bombs fell, Vault-Tec watched, measured, manipulated. Each vault became an experiment in fear, control, evolution, or collapse, a blueprint for understanding humanity at its breaking point. Vault-Tec is not a villain in the conventional sense. It is the crystallization of human arrogance, the belief that suffering can be engineered, quantified, and mastered. And so the wasteland becomes a mirror. It shows us not what the future will be, but what humanity has always been. Fallout is not prophecy. Fallout is diagnosis, a quiet, lingering reminder that even when the world is burned clean, even when history resets, the human heart often walks in circles, returning to the same choices, the same ideologies, the same shadows it once tried to escape. Here, in this silent desert of ruins and echoes, the true question arises: if given another chance, would we choose differently? The wasteland does not reveal itself all at once. It unfolds slowly, like a memory resurfacing through dust and silence. As you step into it, whether in thought or dream, the first thing you notice is the horizon, a long, fractured line where ruined cities stretch endlessly, their buildings scorched into silhouettes. The steel frames stand like ribs of a giant long dead, reminders of a civilization that once believed itself unbreakable. Now they lean in the wind, empty and watching, as if waiting for someone to remember what they used to be. The highways tell a similar story. Once loud with traffic and promise, they have become vast rivers of cracked concrete, shimmering faintly beneath layers of dust. Rusted vehicles sit abandoned on their surfaces, pre-war designs with rounded edges and nuclear engines, now frozen in place like fossils from a forgotten age. Their windows are shattered, their doors half open, as though the world ended so quickly that even machines never had time to settle into stillness. Above it all hangs a sky tinted with muted gold. It is not the warmth of sunlight, but the haze of radioactive particles drifting through the atmosphere. Light filters through it softly, diffused and dreamlike, as if someone pulled a thin sheet of ash across the heavens. Every dawn is the same muted glow, every dusk the same fading ember. It is beautiful in its own haunted way, gentle, even calming, yet always reminding you that the air itself carries the residue of 2077. And sometimes the sky moves, not with storms of rain, but with storms of memory. Dust storms sweep across the plains, lifting grains of radioactive soil and scattering them like whispers over the ruins. When they pass, they leave behind a silence deeper than before, as though the world pauses between breaths. Beyond the cities lie landscapes that nature has half reclaimed, half abandoned. Dry deserts stretch into infinity, their surfaces cracked like old paint. Yet within these barren expanses, pockets of unnatural life emerge, places where radiation reshapes the land according to its own strange logic. The glowing sea is the most infamous, a crater of green fire frozen in time, where the ground bubbles with heat and the air shimmers with lethal beauty. Every rock, every ruined structure glows faintly, as though still absorbing the impact of the bombs. Other regions, lesser known but equally altered, hold swamps of toxic sludge, forests twisted into skeletal forms, and lakes whose surfaces reflect not the sky, but a sickly chemical sheen. Still, the wasteland is not dead. For all its decay, there is a subtle sense of persistence, an undercurrent of survival woven through every ruined street and windswept dune. Plants push through cracked asphalt. Small animals dart between shadows. Settlements rise in the unlikeliest places. The world feels abandoned by time. Yes, but never entirely surrendered. Here, life and ruin coexist in a quiet, fragile balance, breathing softly beneath the ash of a world that tried and failed to outrun itself. If the wasteland is a canvas of silence and dust, then the pre-war ruins are the brushstrokes that give it meaning, ghostly shapes that hold the history of a world too confident to imagine its own end. These structures do not merely sit in the landscape, they haunt it, suspended between past promise and present decay, whispering stories to anyone patient enough to listen. The vaults are the most iconic of these remnants. Their colossal steel doors lie embedded in mountainsides or buried beneath collapsed neighborhoods, silent now, but once symbols of salvation. From a distance, a vault door resembles a vast metal iris, rusted and unmoving, hinting at sanctuary. But up close, the illusion breaks. Scratches mar the surface, numbers fade, and the darkness behind those doors feels less like safety and more like a descent into something unknowable. Each vault contains a unique story etched into its walls, failed social experiments, generations cut off from the world, thriving communities turned to ash by a single flaw in design. They are not shelters, they are tombs of intention, proof that even hope can be weaponized when fear takes the helm. Scattered across the wasteland are the military and scientific facilities that helped shape both the apocalypse and what came after. FV laboratories sit hollow and echoing, their metallic floors stained with chemical remnants, their containment pods cracked open like empty cocoons. These places once buzzed with the arrogance of scientists who believed they could control evolution itself. Now, they are quiet, except for the occasional flicker of a forgotten terminal still looping old data, repeating the same lines of code like a machine mumbling in its sleep. Missile silos rise from the earth like the broken teeth of some subterranean giant. Some are sealed, others yawning open toward the sky, a reminder of how easily a finger on the wrong button could reshape continents. Standing beside one, you can almost imagine the hum of ignition, the rumble beneath your feet, and the world-changing burst that followed. Even after 2 centuries, these ruinous towers carry an air of dread, as though they might awaken again if you breathe too loudly. And then there are the ruins of everyday life, the soft ache of a world that once believed in tomorrow. Red rocket stations, their retro-futuristic signage, peeling, sit like abandoned waypoints along the roads. Inside, you may find a lone Mr. Handy robot, its once polite voice chip long corrupted, repeating broken fragments of pre-war greetings. Nuka-Cola machines stand cracked and empty, their cheerful colors dulled by time. Super-duper marts echo hollowly when you walk through them. The shelves collapsed, the bright commercial jingles replaced by dripping water and quiet wind. Billboards remain as some of the strangest relics, giant metal posters for a world that no longer exists. They smile at you with bright optimism, advertising everything from sparkling beverages to patriotic enlistment. Their cheerful mascots now overlook a wasteland of their own making. These pre-war ruins are not merely debris, they are chapters of a book with no ending, a book the wasteland keeps open, its pages fluttering in the radioactive wind, quietly reminding us that the past is never as distant as we hope. Amid the desolation of the wasteland, the living cling to whatever scraps of stability they can build. These settlements, small or grand, fragile or fortified, are not simply places to survive. They are declarations, statements of who people believe they are, and what future they hope to carve from the ruins. Each one rises from the bones of the old world, carrying its own quiet philosophy in its architecture, its dangers, and its dreams. Megaton is perhaps the clearest symbol of this paradox. Built in a crater and wrapped tightly around a still unexploded atomic bomb, it stands like a hymn to contradiction, life blooming in the shadow of death. Homes of sheet metal and salvaged wood stack unevenly along the slopes, forming a patchwork hive of stubborn humanity. Lanterns sway beside walkways made of scavenged planks. Water trickles down rusted pipes, and in the very center, the bomb rests, silent, inert, yet always humming with possibility. The people of Megaton do not ignore it. They live with it the way one lives with an old wound, aware, respectful, and resigned. Their existence is a reminder that sometimes survival is less about what you avoid and more about what you learn to live beside. To the northeast lies Diamond City, a beacon built within the relic of a baseball stadium. Once a place of cheers and celebration, it now hosts market stalls, living quarters, and defensive walls, all nestled behind the green metal of the stadium's aging frame. Here, the world's collapse becomes strangely practical. Humanity has taken the skeleton of an old pastime and turned it into shelter. Vendors shout. Guards patrol. Families gather around warm lamps as if the world outside were not a wasteland, but just a distant inconvenience. Diamond City embodies adaptation, the art of reshaping a dead structure into a breathing community. Then there is New Vegas, a shimmering mirage of pre-war glamour, preserved by one man's iron will. At night, it glows like a string of neon veins across the desert, pulsing with life, greed, and ambition. Beneath its lights, Mr. House exerts his quiet dominion through machines and algorithms, ruling with a precision no human government ever achieved. New Vegas stands as both refuge and warning, proof that civilization can return, but only in forms shaped by those strong and ruthless enough to enforce it. Hoover Dam, towering and immovable, anchors the Mojave with an entirely different kind of power. It supplies life to whoever controls it, making it the focal point of clashing ideologies. NCR bureaucracy, Legion brutality, and Mr. House's technocratic vision all converge here. The dam is not just a structure, it is destiny made concrete. Whoever claims it decides the fate of an entire region. And then there is Nuka World, where a theme park's cheerful facade has been twisted into a raider kingdom. Roller coasters rust under blood-red skies. Animatronics flicker with broken smiles. It is the American dream, hollowed out and repurposed for violence. A macabre carnival where hope comes to die. Scattered between these larger hubs are countless small settlements, huts of scrap metal, tents of patched fabric, fires burning in makeshift barrels. These clusters of humanity are fragile, temporary but profoundly honest. They speak not of ideology or ambition, but of instinct, the simple, unyielding desire to live one more day. Together, these places form the living heart of the Wasteland, a patchwork world rebuilt from ruin, defined not by what was lost, but by what refuses to disappear. Life in the Wasteland did not end with the bombs. Wires changed and adapted. It warped into forms that reflect the mistakes, ambitions, and fears of the world that came before. To walk through this land is to meet echoes of humanity, some familiar, some profoundly altered, all shaped by by forces beyond their control. These beings are not just creatures of survival, they are living chapters of history, each telling a quiet story about what remains after civilization breaks. Ghouls are perhaps the most haunting. Once human, their bodies endured catastrophic radiation without dying, but not without consequence. Their skin decays slowly, peeling like old parchment. Their voices grow raspy, almost brittle, and their eyes reflect a depth of memory that few living humans can fathom. Many ghouls remember the world before the bombs, the world of comfort, optimism, and fear. They carry those memories like weights, heavy enough to bend the spirit. Some remain gentle, wise, or lonely. Others become bitter, shaped by decades of rejection. All of them live under the shadow of society's prejudice, viewed as monsters, feared as ticking time bombs, and for some, tragically, that fear becomes prophecy. Feralization can take them at any moment, stripping away their minds and leaving only instinct behind. A ghoul's existence is a fragile walk along the edge of forgetting. The super mutants, in contrast, represent a different kind of tragedy, a future engineered, not chosen. Born from the FEV virus, they are taller, stronger, and nearly invulnerable to radiation. But their power comes with a terrible price: sterility. They are a species with no children, no lineage, and no future beyond the lives they live now. Their intelligence varies. Some become articulate philosophers of their own condition, while others slip into aggression and confusion. They are victims of a pre-war dream of perfection, sculpted by science into warriors, but denied the humanity of legacy. Every super mutant is both a triumph of biology and a failure of purpose. Death claws represent the Wasteland's raw, unfiltered response to humanity's hubris. Created as bioengineered weapons, they possess a terrifying blend of speed, strength, and cunning. Their claws can tear through armor. Their senses rival those of apex predators, and yet, for all their ferocity, they are not mindless. Their intelligence and instinct shape territories and hunt patterns that rival the complexity of human settlements. They are nature rewritten by human ambition, proof that the world's attempt to control evolution resulted in forces it could never contain. And deep beneath the ruins, the Institute built the synths, from the clumsy metal frames of Gen 1 to the near-human perfection of Gen 3. Each generation represents a step closer to an unsettling question: what defines a person? Many synths feel emotions, form memories, and dream of lives free from control. Others follow programming with chilling precision. They inspire fear, curiosity, and hope in equal measure. In their struggle for identity, the Wasteland finds itself confronting the nature of the soul, the meaning of freedom, and the fragile boundaries between creation and creator. Together, these beings form the living tapestry of the post-war world, a testament to resilience, mutation, and the quiet persistence of life in all its unexpected forms. In the Wasteland, survival is not only a matter of shelter or water, it is a matter of identity. After the Great War, humanity did not rebuild as one unified species. Instead, it fractured into ideologies, each convinced it understood what the world needed most. These factions are more than political groups. They are reflections of the values, fears, and failures that shaped the old world. To travel through the Wasteland is to witness their competing visions, each one echoing a different answer to the question: how should humanity rise again? The New California Republic appears at first to be the most hopeful and Emerging from shady sands and the survivors of Vault 15, the NCR aspires to recreate the democratic institutions of pre-war America: courts, elections, a standing army guided by law rather than impulse. On paper, it is a dream resurrected. But even dreams carry shadows. Bureaucracy swells, corruption seeps into the cracks, expansion becomes obsession. The NCR advances like a slow-moving empire, convinced it brings order to the wasteland, even as it tramples smaller communities or drains their resources. Its citizens believe in justice, but its leaders are often tangled in politics, profit, and power. The NCR is a mirror of the old world, upright, ambitious, and perpetually weighed down by its own contradictions. Across this landscape stands the Brotherhood of Steel, wrapped in power, armor, and tradition. Born from the remnants of the U.S. military, they carry a single, unwavering doctrine: technology must be contained. To them, human curiosity is a threat, not a gift. They comb the wasteland for advanced weapons, energy sources, and relics, sealing them away so that no one might misuse them again. Their intentions may be noble, preventing another apocalypse, but their methods isolate them. They trust few, tolerate fewer, and reject any being they deem impure, whether ghoul, super mutant, or synth. Their shining armor hides a fear deep at the core that progress, if left unchecked, will destroy the world twice. Then there is Caesar's Legion, grim and unwavering. Founded by Edward Sallow, it molds itself after the ancient Roman Empire, not out of nostalgia, but strategy. The Legion believes democracy is weakness, compassion is liability, and individuality leads to ruin. Through brutal warfare, slavery, and cultural assimilation, it forges unity through fear. Its soldiers obey without question. Its captives break or vanish. The Legion distrusts technology, preferring weapons that embody discipline rather than innovation. To them, civilization is not a negotiation, it is conquest. They offer order in its harshest form, an answer to the chaos of the wasteland that demands absolute submission. Deep beneath the earth, far from the dust and blood, lies the Institute, descendants of MIT scientists. They have retreated from the surface, convinced that humanity above ground is beyond saving. In their pristine halls, untouched by radiation, they pursue progress with cold precision, designing synths, experimenting on unwitting subjects, shaping the future from the shadows. They do not see themselves as tyrants. They see themselves as architects of the next evolution. Yet their detachment from human suffering gives them a chilling clarity. If the world must change, ethics are optional. Together, these factions form the ideological spine of the wasteland, each one flawed, each one earnest, each one certain it alone can rebuild the world. And in their certainty lies the heart of fallout, a reminder that humanity may rise from the ashes, but its divisions rise with it. To wander the wasteland is to walk through a library of living metaphors, each creature, each faction, each broken system whispering something about the human condition. Fallout's world is not just a landscape of ruins, it is a philosophical mirror. Everything that survives or mutates does so with intention, carrying a message that lingers long after the dust settles. The ghouls, for instance, are more than victims of radiation. They are the embodiment of memory that refuses to die. Their bodies may crumble, but their recollections endure, sometimes painfully, sometimes beautifully. They walk among the living, as reminders of a world that once thrived, a world they can never fully return to, yet can never forget. Their tragedy is not their appearance, but their permanence, the past carved into flesh. The super mutants tell a different story. They are the unintended consequence of humanity's ambition to perfect itself. Engineered to be stronger and superior, they instead became trapped in bodies with no future, powerful yet sterile, enduring but incomplete. Their existence refutes the fantasy of a perfect human. Instead, they stand as proof that the quest for engineered greatness often leads to irreversible loss. The synths deepen this philosophical landscape. Created by the Institute in Humanity's image, they force the Wasteland to confront a difficult question: what makes someone a person? Some synths love, dream, grieve, and desire freedom, just as any human would. Others cling to fragments of programmed identity. In them lies the fear of the new, the anxiety that life we create may one day stand beside us, equal or greater. To reject synths is to reject the possibility that humanity could evolve beyond its biological roots. To accept them is to acknowledge that the soul might be something broader than we imagined. The Death Claws, meanwhile, are the Wasteland's most primal lesson. Technology without restraint will always outgrow its creators. Designed as weapons, they surpassed every expectation. Swift, cunning, and devastating, they are evolution hijacked, a reminder that humanity often builds the very threats it later fears most. Beyond individual beings, the factions of the Wasteland stand as ideological reflections, each attempting to answer the same desperate question: how do we save the world from itself? Yet each answer is incomplete. The NCR believes in democracy, but struggles against corruption and ambition, the same weaknesses that once eroded the old world. The Brotherhood of Steel clings to control, locking away technology to prevent catastrophe, yet in doing so, they freeze progress and isolate themselves from the people they hope to protect. Caesar's Legion rejects freedom entirely, believing only brutality can impose order. But in crushing individuality, they extinguish the very spark that makes civilization thrive. The Institute, hidden underground, pursues a future shaped by intellect alone, progress without compassion, innovation without conscience. Each faction holds a fragment of truth, yet none can grasp the whole. Their failures illuminate Fallout 7's central philosophy. Humanity can rebuild its walls, its weapons, its governments, but it cannot easily rebuild itself. Even in a world washed clean by fire, people reconstruct the same patterns, the same ambitions, the same conflicts, the same fragile hopes. The Wasteland reveals this with quiet, unwavering clarity. Starting over is not the same as changing. In Fallout's universe, war is not a single cataclysmic moment. It is a rhythm, slow, relentless, and cyclical, a pulse that beats through every era, shaping nations, ideologies, and even the landscape itself. To understand the Wasteland, you must first understand this rhythm, the rise of power, its decay, its collapse, and its inevitable rebirth. Before the bombs fell, pre-war America stood at the height of technological splendor. Its cities glimmered with atomic light, robots cleaned living rooms and guarded front doors, machines hummed with confidence. Yet beneath the polished chrome and bright advertisements, the foundation was already fractured. Corruption crept into government chambers. Consumerism hollowed out the soul of society. The country looked unstoppable, but deep down it was unraveling. As the old government weakened, corporations filled the void. Vault-Tec, Robco, Poseidon Energy, and others quietly accumulated influence until they overshadowed the institutions once meant to regulate them. Policies bent to profit. Ethics softened into convenience. Technology advanced not for humanity's well-being, but for the ambitions of those who controlled it. Resource scarcity pushed everything closer to the breaking point. The world entered the resource wars, a desperate era defined by dwindling oil reserves, water shortages, and nations clawing for whatever remained. Small conflicts grew into larger ones. Fear fed aggression. Aggression fed retaliation. The world circled the drain while insisting it was fighting for survival. Then came the Great War of 2077, an apocalyptic crescendo that lasted only hours. Nuclear fire swept across continents, erasing cities, governments, and millions of lives. Civilization collapsed, not with a long struggle, but with a sudden blinding flash. And in the silence that followed, humanity had its chance to begin again. But the New World did not break the cycle. It repeated it. In the wasteland that rose from the ashes, new powers emerged. The NCR with its bureaucratic democracy, the Brotherhood of Steel with its doctrine of technological control, Caesar's Legion with its brutal order, and the Institute with its cold vision of engineered progress. Each claimed to possess the answer to rebuilding civilization. Each believed it alone, understood the path forward, and each recreated the same patterns that doomed the old world. Ambition hardened into domination. Fear became justification. Control led to conflict. Conflict led to collapse. The wheel turned exactly as it had before. This is Fallout's deepest truth. War is not an anomaly. It is woven into the human story, present wherever power, fear, and desire intersect. Even when fire wipes the world clean, the seeds of the next conflict lie waiting in the survivors' hearts, ready to bloom again in dust and ruin. The Wasteland is not merely the aftermath of a war. It is a monument to the cycles humanity cannot escape. In the Wasteland, evolution does not unfold with the slow patience of nature. It moves in sudden fractures. It twists, reshapes, and redefines life with a force that feels almost deliberate. Fallout's world is a place where biology and catastrophe meet halfway, creating life forms that reflect both the cruelty of the bombs and the ambition of humanity. To understand these transformations is to understand not only the creatures that wander the ruins, but the desires and mistakes that shaped them. Radiation is the first sculptor of this new world. It does not simply destroy, it rewrites. Cells split in unfamiliar ways. Genes bend, fold, and reform into patterns no scientist ever predicted. Predators and prey alike adapt into strange, unsettling hybrids. Entire ecosystems fragment and then reassemble themselves under new, uncanny rules. The glowing sea stands as the most striking example, a crater of melted earth, glowing faint green under a sky that seems permanently bruised. Other regions, dead swamps, luminous marshlands, pockets of scorched desert, function like biological anomalies, zones where nature experiments without restraint. Yet radiation is only part of the story. The forced evolutionary virus, created before the bombs fell, serves as the more deliberate hand in the Wasteland's transformation. Intended as a final solution to war, FEV was supposed to create stronger, more resilient humans, beings who could survive anything. Instead, It shredded the boundaries of what it meant to be human. Super mutants, centaurs, and countless experimental byproducts stand as grim monuments to a science that valued results over ethics. Fifth's legacy is unmistakable. It produces bodies that cannot die easily, yet cannot reproduce at all. It grants strength, but often steals intellect. It creates forms that endure, but never thrive. Its victims are not merely mutated, they are trapped in a contradiction engineered by human hands. Across the wasteland, life reflects these failed ambitions. The ghoul is a painful example. Radiation allows them to survive, sometimes for centuries, but at the cost of their physical integrity. Their bodies decay even as their memories remain intact, and their minds rest forever on the edge of feral collapse. Their longevity is not a blessing, it is a burden. The super mutant is another reflection of flawed perfectionism. Towering and powerful, they should have been the future of warfare. Instead, they carry an emptiness that no strength can fill, the inability to continue their species. They are eternal soldiers without the possibility of legacy. Even the synths echo this pattern, though they are creations of technology rather than biology. Their bodies are perfect, even beautiful. They think, feel, dream, and suffer, yet they live beneath the shadow of rejection, denied recognition as human by those who fear what they cannot control. Their struggle is not for survival of the body, but survival of identity. Through all these forms, Fallout reveals an uncomfortable truth. Mutation in this world is not a miracle, it is a verdict. Every twisted plant, every altered creature, every suffering being is a quiet reminder of what happens when ambition surpasses humility. The wasteland is filled with life, but none of it asks to be what it has become. In the wasteland, civilizations do not rise from the ashes with clarity or wisdom. They rise with longing for structure, for meaning, for something to believe in after the world has burned itself silent. And so, time and time again, humanity rebuilds, not from understanding, but from instinct. What emerges is a repeating cycle: belief, disappointment, collapse, and rebirth. It begins with a simple desire. People search for a system to place their trust in, a structure firm enough to stand against fear. Vault-Tec promised salvation from nuclear fire. The NCR promised democracy reborn. Caesar's Legion promised order. The Institute promised progress. Each system began as an answer to humanity's despair, an idea wrapped in hope. But no system stays pure for long. Vault-Tec sanctuaries revealed themselves as experiments, each vault a controlled nightmare built under the guise of safety. The NCR's democratic dream thickened into bureaucracy and expansionism, repeating the very flaws of the old United States. The Institute's pursuit of scientific purity drifted into moral detachment, its brilliant minds forgetting the humanity they claim to upgrade. Every promise curves eventually toward its own corruption. Every institution fractures under the weight of its contradictions. When these systems fail, as they always do, trust collapses, communities dissolve, people scatter across the wasteland, carrying with them the sting of betrayal. The fall of belief is not sudden, but slow and suffocating, like the dimming of a lantern whose fuel has quietly run out. Yet after every collapse, the cycle begins. Humans gather, reorganize, and shape new structures from the ruins of the old. They tell themselves that this time will be different. This time the flaws will be fixed. This time they have learned. If humanity were given a second chance, would it choose differently? The wasteland whispers A soft but unsettling answer. We begin again. Yes, but we do not begin new. Our fears, ambitions, and habits follow us into every reconstruction, as inseparable from our identity as our desire to survive. Fallout Sep's philosophy is clear and quiet. Humanity did not destroy itself because of bombs. It destroyed itself because it could not escape its own cycles, cycles of pride, control, desperation, and fear. The Wasteland is not evidence of the world's end. It is evidence of humanity's persistence in repeating its own stories. A blank canvas does not free us from our patterns. It only gives us more space to reenact them. And so, beneath the dust and ruins, the cycle continues. Belief rises. Disillusionment follows. Civilization collapses. Humanity rebuilds, not because it must, but because it cannot do anything else. Take a moment to settle into your space. Let the world around you soften, as if the edges of the room are fading into a gentle blur. Tonight, we step not into danger, but into reflection, into a quiet place where the wasteland becomes less a landscape and more a mirror. Inhale, breathe in slowly, as though the air itself is guiding you toward a long-forgotten road. Picture yourself standing on a deserted highway, cracked, silent, stretching endlessly beneath a muted golden sky. The wind moves across the broken asphalt, carrying the faint scent of scorched metal and dry earth. Nothing rushes here. Nothing demands. The world around you is vast and still, a reminder of how small we are and how deeply the land remembers everything we try to forget. Feel the breath fill your chest, like dust settling gently across an abandoned city. Let your shoulders loosen, your jaw soften. Let the wasteland open before you, not as a threat, but as a quiet teacher. Hold, pause for a moment. Linger in that stillness. See yourself standing there, between ruins and horizon, with the world spread out in silence. And in that silence, ask yourself a question, one carried by the wasteland itself. If everything you knew ended tomorrow, which parts of you would survive? Would it be your resilience, the part that keeps walking even when the path disappears? Would it be your hope, fragile but persistent, like a wild flower pushing through concrete? Or would something inside you bend and reshape itself, the way the creatures of Fallout changed in the face of fire and radiation? Hold that thought gently. Do not judge it. Simply observe the truth that rises. The wasteland invites you to recognize the parts of yourself that endure and the parts that must be shed, just as civilizations rise and fall, just as old identities crumble before new ones take form. This is not destruction. It is transformation, a reminder that even the ruins have a story, and even the smallest ember carries the possibility of becoming a flame again. Exhale. Now let the breath leave your body slowly, like dust drifting off an ancient vault door. As you breathe out, allow the wasteland to recede, not disappearing, but folding gently into the background, like a dream whose meaning lingers long after waking. The cracked highway fades. The wind quiets. The horizon softens into a dim glow. What remains is your own steady breathing, your own presence, your own quiet. Nothing presses on you here. Nothing demands your survival. You are simply resting, held in a moment of stillness, far from the chaos of any world, pre-war or post-war. Let that stillness settle into you. Let it become a place you can return to whenever the noise of life grows too heavy. A quiet stretch of road beneath a quiet sky, waiting for you in silence. In the quiet after our journey, Fallout leaves us with a simple truth. Technology alone cannot save humanity. What endures, what shapes the fate of every world, is the human heart, with all its shadows and its stubborn light. Even when the earth is scorched, our old patterns linger, resurfacing like echoes beneath the dust. The wasteland is not a death sentence. It is a mirror, showing us who we have been and who we might still become. Thank you for walking with me through the silent deserts of this forgotten America. May your night be gentle, and may your heart find rest.